Getting along with Russia is a positive, not a negative. With that being said, if that doesn't work out, I'll be the worst enemy he's ever had.
Our president has invited Vladimir Putin to come to the White House.
The president understands what Russia did in our elections in 2016. He has empowered each of us to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
President Trump undeterred by the amount of criticism that has come his way.
We have sworn an oath to defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Nobody else did what I've done. Obama didn't do it. Obama was a patsy for Russia.
President Trump signing an executive order that could help create up to 500,000.
I wanna rock!
Well, Dee Snider, you're going to get a chance to rock today. It's our summer concert series, the American Summer Concert Series, brought to you by Keurig, and we are so grateful for their invention. It makes our lives a little easier in the morning.
It does.
Listen, in our line of work, you got to have coffee.
You got to have coffee. You got to have that too. Famous Dave's barbecue, of course.
It's 7 in the morning.
If it's 7 in the morning and it's Fridays and 48th and 6th.
Come on by. Absolutely, because we'll be serving up things coming up in about an hour. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us. Brian is off today. Pete is in his place. And on this Friday morning, the 7 o'clock hour, we start with the Fox News Alert. Take a look at these images out of Missouri. Look at those waves on a lake. Wind and waves blamed for capsizing one of those duck boats and sent that duck boat sinking to the bottom of that lake there in Missouri.
At least 11 people now confirmed dead near Branson, Missouri. Several others are still missing.
Yeah, including children. And Todd Pyro is live in the newsroom as the desperate search for survivors restarts this morning. Todd?
Steve, Ainsley, and Pete, good morning. Nightfall put an end to the search for the missing, but you can expect efforts to intensify right now as the sun rises. The National Transportation Safety Board saying that its investigators will also arrive on scene shortly. This deadly incident happened when a boat called Ride the Ducks capsized, then sank. A National Weather Service meteorologist saying the agency issued a severe thunderstorm warning for the area with winds expected to reach 60 miles per hour. In addition to the dead and missing, 7 people were taken to the hospital, with at least 2 of those still in critical condition. Witnesses describe the chaotic scene.
All of a sudden we see all the staff just running back and forth with life jackets and AEDs, just trying to do their best they can to try to figure out where this is. One of the workers actually went into the water, and also a civilian, I believe, went into the water and helped bring him up.
Duck boats, known for their ability to travel on land and water, have been involved in other deadly incidents, including one in Seattle in 2015 when 5 college students were killed after a boat collided with a bus, and one in 2016 in Boston when a duck boat ran over and killed a 28-year-old woman. Not to mention one in 1999 that killed 13 people when a boat sank near Hot Springs, Arkansas. Duck boats were originally used by the military in World War II, but were later modified for use as sightseeing vehicles. As for this latest incident, reports say that there were life jackets on board. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Todd. Of course, the question is, were they wearing them at the time, or did they, I've been on those kind of tours before where they go, now, if there's a problem, we've got the life vests over there, but if things flip over in 1 second, it's hard to get back there.
Well, it's just like the weather, too. If that flips over and you're out on that boat, and it looks like it all happened very quickly.
And even if you're a great swimmer, sometimes it's just
sad.
Too much. Mother Nature.
So as the sun comes up out in Missouri, the recovery effort rescue and recovery will continue out there. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about what is going on down in our nation's capital. You know, it was just earlier this week. It seems like it was about a month ago, but it was just on Monday that the president was in Helsinki. Ainsley was covering that story, the Superpower Summit. And yesterday, about this time, the president sent out a kind of a tantalizing tweet where he mentioned a second meeting with Mr. Putin so that they could further implement the things they discussed in Helsinki, like Ukraine, Israel, nukes, trade with North Korea, trade and North Korea and the Middle East. So it sounded like he was suggesting there's a new one, and then Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, yep, Ambassador Bolton's working on the tie.
Ambassador Bolton's asking him to come to the White House. So we're not sure if they talked at that summit about this next meeting. We don't know if the G20 summit is coming up in November. That's actually going to be in Argentina, so that's not probably the meeting where they're going to schedule their meeting, because they're inviting him to D.C.
Yeah, and right, and Steve, as you pointed out, the fall could mean any time in the fall, but it probably means before the midterm elections.
Of course.
And this is a president, as I said before, that remains undeterred. Imagine most people, with the wave of criticism he got this week, they may back down. Instead, he's clarified and now doubled down and said, this is a relationship I care about.
Right.
I think it could benefit America's interest to have a good relationship.
Sure.
Come on over to the White House.
Keep in mind, on this program on Tuesday, after the president made his press conference in Helsinki, we said, it's puzzling what he said the day before, because he has in the past talked about Russians and meddling in the past,
happened, right?
a number of times. And then he came out later in the day and he said that he had misspoken, that he used a double negative. And in fact, yesterday we did play a little montage of just that. But it points out the fact that for years the Russians have interfered not only in our elections, but in elections all around the world.
That's right. And so the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, came out and made effectively that same point. Listen.
I'm in a position to know. I did have the chance to talk to the president about this, frankly, over the last, almost year and a half now. The president has consistently been briefed on this issue. He understands that the Russians have interfered in our elections. He frankly understands that's been going on for an awfully long time. Somehow America seems to forget the history of Russia's efforts to undermine Western democracy for decades now. It gets confused because there are those who want to make a partisan case out of this with respect to the Mueller investigation. The president understands what Russia did in our elections in 2016, and he has empowered each of us to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Listen, I knew that they were meddling. The president knew that they were meddling. He needed to clarify that statement because he made that mistake at the summit in Helsinki. He clarified it, and then the crowd goes wild. Everyone is just up in arms about that. But then the president was also interviewed on another network yesterday, and he was saying, but if you look at President Obama, what he did, he leaned over and he said, hold on. It was very blatant. He said, hold on. Once this election's over, then I'll have more flexibility. But where was the outrage then?
There's so much speculation in the so-called mainstream media. Is this going to affect the president? Republicans are criticizing. Go to Middle America and talk to some regular folks.
Right.
They're more frustrated by the deranged way in which people go at this president than they are about an outside-the-box approach that he's taking. They say, we know his compass is America first. He's trying to cut some deals. We're going to cut him a break.
He just wants to have a positive, constructive conversation with another leader.
The more they slam him, the more popular he gets. They don't get it. They really don't.
And we were talking about the Axios poll that showed yesterday. It's in the 80s or 90s, the number of Republicans who are with the president on the way he handled Mr. Putin after that particular...
Most who aren't were never Trumpers to begin with. Maybe they dipped their toe in the water a little bit. Now they jump back out.
You know what you meant? And that is what we refer to as Trump derangement syndrome. And actually yesterday, if you were watching The View, Jeanine, Judge Jeanine...
I actually caught.
accused, or actually said that Whoopi was suffering from Trump derangement. She did not like that, and it pretty much just went south after that. If you missed The View yesterday, here's 43 seconds that you will remember.
I'm 62 years old. There have been a lot of people in office that I didn't agree with, but I have never, ever seen anything like this. I've never seen anybody whip up such hate. I've never seen anybody be so dismissive. Here's my question for you, because you talk about, I don't have Trump derangement. Let me tell you what I have. Okay. I have I'm tired of people starting a conversation with Mexicans or liars and rapists.
Well, but you know what's horrible? When people who shouldn't be here end up murdering the children of American citizens.
You know what's horrible? When the president of the United States whips up people to beat the hell out of people. Say goodbye.
And that's how the segment ended. They went to a commercial. They came back. Judge Jeanine was no longer on the set. And Whoopi essentially said, look, kind of sorry about that. I don't normally lose my cool.
She apologized to the audience. Not to Judge.
Keep in mind, Judge Jeanine Pirro, they asked her to come on that show. They asked for her to come on and give her political opinions. And she was a guest in their house. And that's how she was treated. But you think that was bad? It got worse off camera. This was the judge last night with Sean Hannity explaining what happened that we all didn't see. Watch.
I felt like I was less than dirt. I couldn't believe that I went there to have a conversation. I got thrown off the set, thrown out of the building, and as I walked away, she's yelling at me, "Get the F out of this building." Sean, it's sad. What these people have turned into is sad. What is happening?
According to page 6 in the New York Post, ABC producers and Whoopi Goldberg herself have reached out to have a conversation with the judge about what happened. We will have the judge on this program 50 minutes from right now. So we'll ask her what happened on The View.
It will be interesting. And sometimes just a simple comparison. Steve, imagine if you did that. And then imagine if you went down the stairs, went into the green room, and kept screaming profanities at a guest that was here. I mean, it would never happen. It's derangement. Thank you for fulfilling exactly the criticism that was leveled. That was deranged.
Well, I can't wait to hear the latest. We'll have the judge on Curvy Couch later on in the show. But we told you about that weather in Missouri, the duck boat overturning. There's more crazy weather out there, tornadoes, and Jillian has the latest for us.
That's right. Really severe weather happening overnight in a lot of parts of the country. So let's get you caught up on this and take a look. Powerful and unexpected tornadoes ripped through Iowa, leveling homes and sending debris flying through the air.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Honey, get inside. They just won a house.
Wow. Check out this video now. The storms knocking down power lines, roofs, and trees in 3 cities. You can see a massive plume of water spewing out of this flattened home. At least 17 people are hurt. And take a close look at your screen right there in kind of the left portion. That's the winds toppling a clock tower right on top of a courthouse. And more video of another twister throwing cars around like toys and piling them on top of each other. Wow, incredible. Another breaking story right now. Police in Hawaii closing in on the suspected cop killer. They believe Justin Waikiki is hiding out in a rural area on the island, and they upped the reward to catch him to $30,000. He's accused of shooting and killing Officer Bronson Kaliloa during a traffic stop. The 10-year veteran leaves behind a wife and 3 young children. The suspected killer is a convicted felon and was once described by a judge as having a gross disregard for authorities. He's considered armed and dangerous. He's an American fighting for ISIS in Syria. This morning, no longer. The U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces capturing 28-year-old Ibrahim Musaibli. He's a high school dropout from Dearborn, Michigan, who moved to Yemen. Officials believe he traveled to Syria in 2015. He will be sent back to the U.S. to answer to the Department of Justice. Many of you have seen the movie Lone Survivor.
What are you thinking? I think we're about fixing to get into a pretty good gunfight.
That's the story of Lieutenant Michael Murphy's unit. He was killed in Afghanistan and earned the Medal of Honor for his heroic actions. A memorial for that fallen Navy SEAL was just found shattered at a park in New York. There's a $2,500 reward for information about the vandalism. Murphy's comrade Marcus Luttrell tweeting, quote, "Only a coward would do this. We are matching Crime Stoppers' reward to anyone who turns in the lowlife who did this. If you would like to donate, go to foxandfriends.com. Isn't that terrible?
That is so sad to see.
Well said.
I hope they find Marcus Luttrell. He's awesome. He's a hero. He's fighting back. He's like, I hope we find out, and I'm going to double the reward so that we can find out who did this.
That person's a coward.
Yeah.
We got great viewers. I have no doubt that we will contribute significantly.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks,
go to our website, foxandfriend.com.
That's right.
Meanwhile,
coming up, do you make less than $15 an hour? Well, guess what? You can call yourself, quote, a victim of violence. We will explain.
I want to see that. And you saw the protest right here on Fox and Friends. Democrats calling to abolish ICE. Well, there are some Democrats on the right side of the issue. Congressman Tom Suozzi, one of them. He's next.
As the left pushes to abolish ICE, the House overwhelmingly passed a resolution to support the agency on Wednesday. But of the over 130 Democrats present, only 18 voted for it, while others withheld their votes in protest. Here now is one of the few Democrats who voted to support this vital agency, Congressman Tom Suozzi of New York. You represent parts of Long Island. Congressman, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You said Sean Hannity, one of your famous constituents.
Yes, he lives in my district. I don't know if he voted for me, though. He might have voted for me.
We'll see. I don't know.
Maybe.
But you were one of 18 that voted to support ICE. First of all, why did you vote that way?
Because I do support ICE. I mean, ICE is an important government agency, and I thought this was a political stunt, quite frankly, to put it on the floor. I mean, why don't we put on the floor that we support the intelligence agencies after the president knocked them? You remember when the Republicans back in 2015 were saying we should abolish the IRS. We're not going to abolish the IRS. I mean, it's a political stunt.
So it may or may not be a political stunt, but a vote is still a vote of no confidence or confidence, or a vote to say that's a political stunt.
I support ICE, and I think that they have an important job to do in this country, securing our border, making sure people don't overstay their borders. Do I think some things are being handled the wrong way? Do I think the president has some bad policies? There's separation of families. I don't support that policy. I don't support a lot of certain things, but I support the agency.
So this is what the president had to say recently. He said the Democrats have a death wish in more ways than one. They actually want to abolish ICE. This could cost them heavily in the midterms. Yesterday, the Republicans overwhelmingly passed a bill supporting ICE. So things like abolish ICE, things like open borders, things like sanctuary cities, are those winning policies for Democrats?
Well, open borders is not a winning policy. I'm a very strong supporter, as are most Democrats, of strong border security. We just need to make a deal with the president and solve the problems. Let's actually... the people are so sick of politicians.
But
they want something
that's
done.
True. That's
they want something done.
But that's also why they voted for a businessman who had not been in politics. And so when you say border security, are you
why they voting
for the wall? Are you for a wall then as part of it?
I would support some physical structures on the borders. I think there should be more technology related to radar and things like that, and more border patrol. But we need to make a deal where we say, listen, let's protect the dreamers. Let's legalize the people in this country. Let's actually solve this problem we've been fighting about for 35 years in this country. Let's actually solve the problem and fix it. Mr. President, invite me to the White House. I'll come in. I'll negotiate a deal with you.
Hey, he said that time and time again. If there's a willing partner on the Democratic side to cut, the deal's on the table. It's got 4 pillars. Would you vote for those pillars?
No, I wouldn't. I don't know why we would bring in legal immigration right now. Why mess with that? Let's do
we don't have much time.
Let's do border security. And let's protect the dreamers. That's a great first step. You could get a deal like that done tomorrow if you could get one on the floor.
A lot of other priorities as well. Congressman, thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks so much.
Sometimes, you can vote with the other side. It's okay. It's true. All right, Canada's Prime Minister welcomed refugees with open arms. Now 50,000 of them have gone missing. Our next guest says this is the worst thing that could happen. And don't call your kid a baby. Now you should call them they-bees. The gender bender coming up next.
Time now for your news by the numbers. First, $15. If you get paid less than that, MoveOn.org considers it violence. In a tweet, the political group says that employers knowingly let people suffer by issuing low wages. Next, 15 days. That is how long a woman was sentenced to prison or to jail for illegally collecting seashells. Her name is Diana Fiscal Gonzalez. She took queen conch shells from a Florida beach, not knowing that they were protected by the state. And finally, $1.1 million. That is how much a Boston woman had in her bank account for just 10 minutes. There was a big mix-up with her bank. The deposit was meant for a woman with the same name that lived in Florida. Steve?
Look at that. All right. Thank you very much, Ainsley. As the world grapples with the refugee crisis and the threats from terrorists pledging to infiltrate their ranks, a new op-ed claims that Canada may have lost track of 50,000 Syrian refugees in Canada. Top Canadian officials saying, quote, the Liberals had a plan to monitor whether the mostly Arabic-speaking refugees were learning English or French, working, receiving social assistance, and going to school, but the government has failed to follow through. Here to react, Douglas Murray, author of The Strange Death of Europe, Immigration, Identity, and Islam. As you can see, he's joining us this morning from London. Douglas, good afternoon to you there.
Good to be with you.
Okay, so Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, announced he would accept up to 25,000 many undocumented Syrians. What could possibly go wrong?
Yes, I mean, all your viewers will remember that moment just before the inauguration of President Trump, where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada ostentatiously boasted on Twitter that Canada would always be open to people fleeing war or oppression. He was obviously setting it up as in contradiction to the United States of America, which was obviously becoming some barbaric country.
Right.
Now, I mean, the thing about this is that Justin Trudeau was obviously just auditioning for a sort of virtue signalling role on Twitter. And he opened the country up to, among other things, many thousands of Syrian refugees. There's around 50,000 that seem to have come in by now. But he, it seems, hasn't kept track of them. Since the photo ops in the first days, there's been very little information we can learn about what's happened to these people. The last report was in 2016 from the government, and that, among other things, showed that only, I think, 10% of government-assisted refugees from Syria were in any kind of employment in Canada.
Sure.
So perhaps that's why, 2 years later, reporters from the Vancouver Sun haven't been able to find any information from the Canadian government about what has happened to these people.
Absolutely. They simply have not updated any status reports so that that folks know where they are, if they're still there, if there are more than they thought before. But, you know, Douglas, when you look at the number of migrants who have gone into, for instance, Germany, I mean, and now Angela Merkel she's in a pickle politically because of all the trouble that gesture in the beginning, that humanitarian gesture, it looked great, but now they're facing the real-life consequences of those thousands of people in their country.
We all have this problem now, everywhere in the world, in the developed world, of politicians who sometimes seem to do things for, you know, tomorrow morning's newspapers or today's reaction on Twitter. And just opening up your country to migration on this scale is something that affects your country for generations. It doesn't go away in a 24-hour news cycle. And the German government is seeing this now. The Swedish government is seeing this now. Every country in Europe is seeing the consequences of this now, what I warned about in my book. And that's because we have to ask far deeper questions about this. It's not enough to virtue signal. You've got to work out what you're going to do. And if you bring in tens of thousands of refugees, let alone the illegal migrants that have come into Europe in recent years, then you've got to have some plan. You can't just leave them in the country. It appears that's what Canada has done, and now it just wants to cover over the consequences of that decision.
But, you know, Douglas, the problem with bringing in all these Syrian refugees is the fact that a lot of them, and we've seen stories about how ISIS would try to infiltrate various Western nations to try to infiltrate and do whatever ISIS does because they didn't have proper paperwork. And so for all of these leaders to be going, yeah, come to my country, we're going to take care of you, it looks like to you a lot of those gestures are just simply the PC, the politically correct thing to say at the time.
Well, they certainly are. There is certainly a security dimension to this. It's already been demonstrated in Europe many times, the security threat of this. Of course, many of the people fleeing the Syrian civil war, most of them, are trying to flee or tried to flee groups like ISIS. But, I mean, this is the set of problems we have. There is obviously the security component. But the much more obvious one is the idea that you can save, for instance, people fleeing from the Syrian civil war, and that the best idea is to put them into Canada, is a terrible mistake. There's a Swedish academic who pointed out a couple of years ago that you can look after 100 Syrians in the neighbouring countries around Syria for every one person you can look after in Syria. It costs the same amount. So it's 100 times more cost inefficient to take them to Sweden. I don't think anyone's done the stats. Certainly nobody in the Canadian government would want to do the stats for how much more it costs to bring a refugee to Canada than it does to look after refugees in the areas around Syria. But it must be at least 100 times. So this humanitarian gesture, which is really just a humanitarian audition by Justin Trudeau, actually doesn't have the well-being of most of the Syrian refugees in mind. And it has no idea of what to do, for instance, once the Syrian civil war comes to an end, which it will at some point.
It will.
Do these people go home? Will the Canadian government assist them in going home? It seems they haven't thought any of it through.
Well, you know what, Douglas? Maybe after this segment, the Canadian government will issue an update, and we'll know where all those people are and how many there are.
I wouldn't wait too long for it.
All right, we'll stand by. Douglas Murray, he's written a great book. It's called The Strange Death of Europe, Immigration, Identity, and Islam. It is an eye-opener. Thank you, sir, for joining us live from London.
Great pleasure.
All right. So what do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. Meanwhile, coming up, what's the real story behind the job market right now?
Unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs. They're working 2, 3, or 4 jobs to try to pay the rent and keep food on the table.
2, 3, 4 jobs? Really? Senators Joni Ernst and Tim Scott, both here to set the record straight. Plus, he's the bad boy of rock and roll, but did you know his dad was a state trooper? Dee Snider is over in the Keurig corner with Janice and Jill. It's Dee and the K-Cups. That's okay.
All right, this is your shot of the morning. This little boy's attempt at a dive is a total flop. Take a look.
That is 2-year-old. Deacon is trying to copy his mother and brother who dived into the pool, but instead he does an epic belly flop.
Oh, but watch, it didn't even hurt. He's so little.
Yeah,
just big smiles.
Pictures from New Jersey, Peter.
It's been seen more than 2.5 million times online. It's fantastic. It was also seen in my pool yesterday.
Oh,
that's not only a belly flop, it's a face plant.
Wow.
You know, I will tell you, we all smile. If you raise kids, you just smile because there's nothing better. They're so cute.
They'll try
every day they do the cutest things.
It's cool. But when you catch it on tape, it's even better.
It is indeed. All right, it is 25 minutes before the top of the hour. I just saw Jillian having a cup of coffee with
Yes,
Lisa.
that's what I was
Jillian,
doing.
I'm a proponent of you having like 10 kids. I'll babysit all of them. One day.
This is a conversation for
It's the
another
best.
time.
It's the best. 10 kids for you.
Oh, I got to do the news right now. Darn. All right, let's get you caught up on your headlines, starting with this. Ainsley, geez, another country following President Trump's lead, cracking down on immigration. And now they're in big trouble for it. Hungary now facing legal action over its new asylum law. The country referred to the European Union's highest court for threatening those who help asylum seekers with jail time. Forget he or she. According to NBC News, hundreds of parents now think it's wrong to identify their babies as boys or girls. Instead, they raise them as babies or use completely gender-neutral pronouns. The theory is if you never reveal if the child is a boy or girl, they can't be pigeonholed into gender stereotypes. Critics say these children are more likely to be bullied. Women got ponytails and now men want beards. Sailors spreading the hashtag #WeWantBeards, asking the Navy to allow them to grow facial hair. Supporters say it would boost morale, but the policy is in place so sailors could wear breathing masks without any problems. This comes after the Navy reversed its policy on women's hairstyles last week. Instead of requiring buttons like you see on your screen there, they can now sport ponytails and locks. Worst date ever. Forget stealing a woman's heart. This guy is accused of stealing a woman's car on their first date. Faith Pugh says Kelton Griffin asked her to run in and buy him a cigar inside a Tennessee gas station. When she went inside, he took off with her car. Adding insult to injury, Pugh says she got a text from a friend saying she was on a date with Griffin, where police later arrested him. You can't make that up. That's a look at your headlines. Now let's get a check of the forecast, I believe, right, with Janice Dean outside? Maybe?
Hi! Are we doing a bit of a forecast? It is a beautiful day here in New York City. Don't you think, everybody? Yeah! Oh my gosh! Are you ready for Dee Snider? Yeah! I love you.
You know, it is a Friday. Everyone's in a better mood, a little better mood, right? One of the most powerful voices in rock and roll is back and better than ever.
Woo!
And he's listening to us describe him. He rocked for decades as Twisted Sister's frontman with famed hits like We're Not Gonna Take It.
And here with songs off his solo album, For the Love of Metal, legendary hard rock icon and former Twisted Sister frontman Dee Snider, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here. I feel underdressed, but I'm dressed to rock, not to do the news.
Where do you buy clothes like that?
I don't buy clothes like that. My wife makes clothes like that.
Seriously?
Yeah, but she doesn't take my well-being into consideration. She put all of these metal bolts in my pants because they look cool, but they're cutting the hell out of me.
You have been married to her for 37
years, yeah.
What's the secret?
It's the men's heavy metal indoor record, actually. It's 37 years. The secret is you find a good one, you hold on for dear life. And hopefully she puts up with you.
Your dad was a trooper, grew up in New York. Your mom was an art teacher. Tell me about your wife and how y'all met, what your story is.
Well, Suzette, at the tender age of 15 and looking like 25, borrowed her cousin's proof, snuck into a club to see his new girl group, the Twisted Sisters. And I was up there wearing a pair of Daisy Duke stockings and a t-shirt that had profanity on it. And I spotted her and I fell in love Found out after that she was 15. She family's in the mob, threatened to kill me.
What?
The rest is, well,
you're making that up.
I swear.
TV movie.
But I think in retrospect, just threatening. If I walked in, I was 21, she was 15, I would have just shot me right there.
How many kids do y'all have?
We have 4 kids, 4 grandkids, and they're just starting.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Love that story.
You definitely don't look like my grandfather.
You look great.
It's a different day and age.
Tell us what you're doing now.
I'm promoting a new record for the love of metal, which is, I've been doing shows over in Europe, here in the States, continuing to do shows. It stores, the 27th, July 27th, and there was Rocktopia was on Broadway here for a while. They've asked me to join the cast for their fall shows.
That's awesome.
In Jersey, Long Island, Ohio, so I'll be singing with them as well. So.
What's your secret for looking so good?
Oh, stop!
Oh,
stop!
It is
I never did any drugs. I never drank.
Really?
I was like the anti-rock star, and all the rock stars just look at me going, "What's wrong with that guy?" And I go, "Dude, I don't want to be in the 27 club. I want to be in the 87 club."
Yeah!
Dee was one of the rock stars who lived to 87. That's right.
And the love of a good woman.
Yeah, well, I got a good one, yes.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. Well, you're going to be kicking off the summer concert series here at the top of the hour, 8 o'clock Eastern, here in New York City. Dee Snider, how about a nice round of applause?
Are you guys ready?
Thank you, Dee. We can't wait to hear you sing today.
Pleasure.
What is the real story behind the job market?
Unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs.
They're working 2, 3, or 4 jobs to try to pay the rent and keep food on the table.
Seriously? Senators Joni Ernst and Tim Scott are here to react to that. Coming up next.
And while you were sleeping, the NFL just punted on its new national anthem policy. We'll bring it to you.
You can't stop.
Hope you're having a good morning so far. Welcome back. Some quick headlines now. The House voting to protect the tax-exempt status of churches that support political candidates. It's a major shot to the Johnson Amendment, which prohibits religious leaders from getting political in the pulpit. Senate Democrats already vowing to block it. And atheists threaten to take legal action against a cafe that offered a special deal for churchgoers. The Ohio business owner criticized after he gave out a 10% discount for anyone who bought in a church bulletin on Sunday.
Nobody has said a word to me in any way, shape, or form, thinking that that was any type of discriminatory act or even, anything offensive.
Erring on the side of caution, he pulled the discount. Steve.
Jillian, thank you. Remember when Democratic Socialist newcomer Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said this?
Unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs.
Well, now Elizabeth Warren is following her lead and one-upping her. Listen.
When people are working at minimum wage jobs that won't support them, or they're working 2, 3, or 4 jobs to try to pay the rent and keep food on the table, then simply saying the unemployment figures have gone down just doesn't get you there.
So is this rhetoric the future of the Democratic Party, and are they out of touch with where real Americans are?
Iowa Senator Joni Ernst and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott each just have 1 job, and they're joining us right now from Des Moines. Senators, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you? So what do you think about that? You've got 2 very famous now Democrats saying you need 2 jobs to get ahead in the world. Or with Senator Warren, your colleague, you need 2, 3, 4 jobs. Who's got it right, Senator Ernst?
Well, I don't think they have it right. Here in Iowa, we have 50,000 jobs that are unfilled because our unemployment is so low. What we need to focus on is making sure that our workers have the necessary jobs to advance. And the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, of course, has really helped our employers and employees. Wages have gone up, and we're very excited about it.
And we're going to get to that.
Let me say this because of
Go ahead.
Let me comment on that. 148 million Americans are working. 7 or 8 million have more than 1 job. 7 or 8 million have more than 1 job out of nearly 150 million people. Their comments were theater.
Well, facts matter,
Senator. They could somehow,
to your point, though,
they don't matter on the left, just on the right.
Well, to that point, I mean, does it work to tell people the economy's not good when it is improving?
The bottom line is anyone who wants to attack the Trump economy must find a way to do it in theater, because the reality of it is when you add 213,000 jobs just last month, unemployment is so low that the long-term unemployment are coming back to work, and we have a 45-year high in optimism from small businesses. The left is losing their mind. This is kind of fun to watch on TV because no one believes what they're saying. It's so far out of the realm of reality. We are in good shape.
Well,
we see that in our neighborhoods all the time.
They need some sort of a narrative going into the midterms. Now, Senator Ernst, talking about the Investing in Opportunity Act, you're going to explain what it is. I know that the senator from South Carolina is joining you there to tour some various facilities there. But this is all an outshoot of the tax reform bill, right?
Absolutely, and this is the brainchild of my dear friend Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is why he is joining us here in Iowa today. I was proud to be a co-sponsor on that bill, and he successfully ushered this through the Tax and Jobs Act. We have 62 opportunity zones that have been identified by our wonderful Governor Kim Reynolds right here in Iowa, and today we're going to take that opportunity to go out and visit some of those zones. So I know Senator Scott would like to walk us through some of what his legislation did.
We've got 15 seconds, Senator Scott. TV and hard breaks. Just give us a quick sum up.
Sounds good. The summation is simple. Rural poverty, opioid addiction, challenges can all be addressed by bringing private sector capital into some of the rural areas, and let's see prosperity happen all over again.
Well, very good. Senators, we thank you both for joining us live from Des Moines. In Iowa, the land of opportunity.
And I like this under private sector capital.
There you go. That. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, you've seen parents and coaches fighting on the sidelines of children's sporting events. Well, our next guest is putting them all to shame, and you will see how.
You will. Plus, Judge Jeanine and Whoopi Goldberg go head-to-head on yesterday's View.
I've never seen anybody be so dismissive. Here's my question for you, because you talk about, I don't have Trump derangement. Let me tell you what I have.
What happened when the cameras were turned off? Judge Jeanine set the record straight in 10 minutes. You're not going to want to miss it, folks. You're watching Fox and Friends.
Whoa. Did you see that? Look at these parents. Unruly parents and spectators ganging up on refs at children's sporting events. Some of these kids are like 8 years old. It's getting so bad that one referee is now calling foul. He's posting these embarrassing videos on social media in hopes of deterring parents in the future.
That parent, shaming referee and founder of Offside, Brian Barlow, joins us now with more on his efforts. So, Brian, you've been a referee. You're saying parents are out of control. I've been a ref for games. I've been a coach. I'm now a parent. Seen all sides of this. How do you get it under control and give some parents a perspective?
You know, I don't know that anyone's getting it under control. And so as a referee, my first and foremost passion is to be a referee. But, you know, I watch a lot of these youth referees or these inexperienced referees, and I watch them struggle. You know, some of the toughest games to ref are the U6, the U8, U10, U12, and sometimes the U14s, because every game's the World Cup. And so I thought, man, everyone knows there's a problem. Everyone knows there's an issue. But none of these clubs or organizations, none of these youth sport associations are doing anything about it. And so I thought, you know what? I own a marketing company by trade, and I know how to organize a vision and execute a goal. And so, yeah, we put together Offside, and yeah, so it's a little bit controversial. We shame people we embarrass them, but you know what? Don't act like that.
Well, they embarrass themselves, exactly. So, Brian, what are you doing? People can send in their tapes if they tape it of parents getting in fights.
Right, so we're asking people to be a part of the solution as opposed to just sitting back and watching. I mean, everyone, when you go to sporting events, you see this kind of stuff. So we're asking people to get involved. If you start seeing a parent or coaches are rarely the issue, but if you do see a coach start getting out of control, we're asking that you pull your videotape, start recording it, you send it to the Your Offside page on Facebook, and listen, we get a lot of videos. If we post it, though, we give you $100 every single time. And then what happens is these videos usually get anywhere from 100 to 200 220,000 views. That's probably going to grow in the future. And then, you know, the point of the videos is to make people understand, and this has happened, when you're on video and you're caught acting like a fool, or what we call a cheeseburger, you realize you've made a butt of yourself, and you tend to change the dynamics of your behavior. And that's all we're looking for. We're trying to put this in perspective for people that this is a game. It's supposed to be an innocent
sport. Do they ever
sport.
call you, the parents, and say, please take my video down, I'm so embarrassed?
Oh, I bet.
Do you take it down?
Hey, no, well, I do have a little bit of a heart, so I have done it a couple of times. I tell you, I've got a great success story, though. I have a woman that became the focal point of this huge video that we posted, and it went viral. And she is now a soccer referee.
Oh, wow.
I had, and
seen it from the other side.
Yeah, right. And so I had another woman that her daughter got kicked off the soccer team because of one of our videos, because of the way her mom acted.
Aww.
They got kicked out of the competitive club. She called me. Of course, she threatened legal action at first. And I said, listen, you can, you know, do whatever you need to do. But once we got to her soul, and once we got to the real point of what she was calling for, and really got to the crust of her emotion, we realized, you know, listen, it was a 45-minute conversation. She begged and pleaded. She now updates me every 3 or 4 months and says, hey, listen, I haven't yelled at a referee. I've encouraged other parents to not referee. So it really puts everything in perspective for people.
It does. Brian, thank you.
Brian, thank you.
Great stuff. Appreciate it.
Love it. Thank you for having me.
What do we have?
We have Ivanka Trump coming up, so stick around. Stay with us.